this issue. I'm Madison Zigraff. I'm a senior at Rhodes College in Memphis. For the past 2 years, I've also been involved with our liberal arts in prison program. So I've spent a lot of time in prison where we teach college courses at the West Tennessee State Penitentiary. I've gotten to know a lot of people who the justice system has failed. So for that reason, I wanted to make an impact on the system too. So for the past 2 years, I've also been working for Mayor Harris on criminal justice projects. And as Mayor Harris and speakers already today have mentioned, Shelby County has extremely high rates of incarceration that disproportionately affect people of color and young people. So a lot of the research I've done around criminal justice also has to do with specialty courts. So I'm so excited to have this chance to learn from these panelists who are doing the work and are reimagining the justice system in ways that better serves defendants and addresses underlying problems that don't perpetuate a system of punishment. So I'll turn it over to the panelists to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll get started with the questions. Honorable Sparks, would you mind starting?
Oh, no, I'd love to start. I want to thank you, first of all, for allowing us to come and be a part of this wonderful program. And I'm glad we have this medium that we can communicate and not have to be physically present. My name is Andra Sparks, and I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. Been a presiding judge for the city of Birmingham for the last 10 years. And we learned a little while ago, I'll say a little while, that's being facetious, about a decade ago, that specialty courts would help us help the community. And so we've created a number of them, about 9 specialized courts at our municipal court, to be honest. We have a drug court. We have a domestic violence court and a mental health court, homeless court, environmental court. We have a bilingual court and a veterans treatment court. And we have been able to, I think I called all of them, I may have missed one of them. We also now, because of COVID, will absolutely have a cyber court going forward. There won't be any doubt that we'll have a virtual track for anybody to come in and to resolve their issues. In fact, we hope they won't have to come to the building at all to resolve their issues. But we determined that using this specialized track allows us to train our staff and to get the latest and current information so we can better serve the people who come before us. That's why we use these specialized courts.
My name is Dr. Janet Hopson. I am a Memphis native. I've been in Nashville now for over close to 30 years. I am a Memphis State University alumni. Got my doctorate degree at Trevecca University here in Nashville. I am currently the director of we have a specialty court as well, Judge Sparks, and I direct a program called the Davidson County Felony Residential Drug Court, which was one of the first residential specifically for drug court participants. It's the first residential facility. We have about 100, a little over 100 bed facility. It is a co-ed facility, which is kind of my headache, supervising both males and female felony offenders. It is not a lockdown facility. Yeah, so it is unique in that we specialize in, because we are located, the facility it's a multi-acre campus that house nonviolent felony offenders in the community. Again, the program has been operational for a little over 20 years.
I've heard of it. It's famous.
Yeah, it is. It was founded by Judge Seth Norman.
Yeah.
Judge Norman actually was a criminal court judge, and he talks about constantly how the reason he founded this innovative program, and that was because he saw a revolving door in his courtroom with people coming in and out of the courtroom. He would sentence someone, and then the next, and I know, Judge, you probably experienced the same thing, the next few months or the next year, those people are right back in front of him. And he heard about a program in Miami-Dade County, Florida, was one of the first drug courts.
That's right.
back in the 80s, there was a plethora of drug court of people suffering from addiction. Just give you a little bit of history. Because of the war on drugs, we saw astronomical increase in the rise of African Americans being arrested due to a lot of drug-related charges. So he decided to start it as an outpatient drug court similar to yours, Judge. And we quickly learned that not everybody could do outpatient, because sometimes you were placing them back into the same community, back into the same environment. So there were some people who were needing more intensive type of treatment. So therefore, he established the residential drug court facility where people can work on their addiction and concentrate and focus on their addiction rather than being in the community where sometimes their neighbors or their family members may be using drugs. So we've placed them in this facility where they're receiving treatment. Like I said, the campus is a large campus. We have a vocational building. We have treatment, several treatment rooms. We just, anything that the participants need to assist with their transitioning back into the community successfully with their families, we have established. So I'll let
I think I heard about your program a couple of ways. I think Carolyn Harden worked your program at one time, and she's the National Drug Court Association. She gives rave reviews and was teaching a session on incentives and sanctions, I remember. And Carolyn's from Alabama. So we learned about your program. And Ed Harden was an attorney, I think, who helped to found the program, helped to put all the specs in place. And he lives here in Birmingham, Ed Harden. And so, yeah, we've spoken about actually trying to create a residential program like your program, because your program is actually a model for those around the country. So I commend you for all the work you've done.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get started with the questions. I'm really encouraged that you two have already started the dialogue and you've already touched on a lot of things you're going to bring up. So just for the sake of our attendees, for those of us who don't know the difference, can you both just elaborate on what is the difference between a specialty court or program and the traditional court system?
Okay. The specialty court is different from the regular court docket in that it uses a model of frequent court intervention, frequent court appearances, and it uses a model of non-adversarial case management. And so let me break that down. That simply means that the person comes to court to see the judge more frequently, and the prosecutor, the defense counsel, the probation, treatment, they collaborate for the treatment of the person who's in front of them. And that's in all of those specialty courts I've talked to you about. So for example, in the drug court, and Dr. Hobson knows this, in the drug court, they actually meet to have a triage session before each court session so they can determine the progress of the individual in the program. In a regular court, you wouldn't have this level of involvement. And it's this level of involvement that has been shown with empirical data to help people become successful in the treatment process. Sometimes in an outpatient setting, other times in an inpatient setting, but having that level of frequent involvement has been helpful. The judge is an integral part of the treatment process in any specialty court. And I can tell you now that that's been the case here in our court. I also had the opportunity, in addition to the court that we're doing here, to start Alabama's first juvenile drug court back in 1996. So I've done it with adults and with juveniles, and the process works the same way. I mean, Ms. Hobson, I'm sure can put some more on that.
Yeah, they are specialty courts, and what specialty courts do is they incorporate intensive judicial supervision. It's more of a team approach. So you have the judge who calls a docket about once weekly. They see the participants in the program. You have a public defender, usually on your team, a district attorney on your team, treatment, which is very important. So everybody comes together and talk about that particular individual or participant in the program. You just get a status check from everybody. How's he doing? How's he doing in treatment? Is he working a program? And the judge is a really vital part of any specialty court, because the judge is the one who might issue various sanctions in drug court, and the goal is for them to successfully complete the program and become productive citizens in the community. And the whole purpose for a specialty course was to be able to hold people accountable, but yet give them the services that they need to be successful.
Right.
So they bring all the core people together that's a part of the judicial system. And it also, it started as a drug court, and I know, Judge, you know that. And what has happened now, there's a lot of different specialty courts. Now there's a specific veterans court, juvenile drug court, veterans treatment court, mental health courts, and you've got several yourself, Judge, but now that it has grown simply because we cannot house and treat everybody in the prison system. When you do that, a lot of times they come out, if they have a history of drug addiction, which is what we treat, either alcohol or drug addiction in our program, and most of them have a lengthy history of that. And it saves the taxpayers money if your goal is to reintegrate them successfully in the community, because oftentimes they need that support. And so that's why
Carrie has a question about how we fund these programs, Dr. Hobson. And I don't know about the funding stream for the Davidson County program, but I can tell you that Birmingham's drug court started with an initial startup grant from BJA back in 2007, 2008. They got an initial $325,000 grant to actually start the drug court. From that grant in 2008, we applied after the first 2-year cycle. We applied for an enhancement grant based on the work that we had already done, and we were refunded and have been refunded continuously. That initial $325,000 that we got is now up to, in this latest grant cycle, when it's completed, we will have gotten $5 million in grants from the government for our program. So we partner specifically with an inpatient treatment program. We don't have our own like they do, but we partner with a program called the Alethea House here in Birmingham that does fabulous work. And that's our inpatient component. They also provide the medical staff and the mental health staff for our program. This last grant cycle, we decided we would add medication-assisted treatment to the paradigm. And we've also included patients in the LGBTQ community who are often overlooked when it comes to treatment and cannot sometimes successfully go through programs. We've included them in our program. That's been well received. We think that the specialty court model is so good because of the team effort. We work together and we train together. There's a greater understanding among the team members of how to deal with the issue. We've been to trainings all over the country with the National Drug Court Association. We bring that information back to Birmingham, and it flows directly into our program and into the community. The model is very successful. In addition to the money that comes from the federal government, let me tell you this: someone in your government is going to have to become a champion for the program. More often than not, it's the judge who's going to be a champion, who's going to go around and be the one to explain to all the powers that be why drug courts work. This is not guesswork. There's enough evidence out there that shows you, as Dr. Hobson says, that drug courts save money, that drug courts put people back into the community who have been addicted to drugs. There's enough evidence over the last 25 years to prove that without a doubt. But I can tell you, you're going to have some naysayers. The question asked whether there were naysayers. There are going to be some people who are going to say that it takes too long, for people to be in the program. There are going to be some people who tell you that the requirements are too fierce. But I challenge those same people to tell me, how much does a drug addiction continue to cost the community? Someone continues to be strung out on drugs without any intervention. What is that costing the community on a per dollar basis for arrest and for all the other problems that come? And so it's money well spent. And dollar for dollar, you're going to get a great return on any drug court that you create.
I concur. Most of our funding comes from the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. We started out with federal funding, which most specialty courts do. Sometimes those grant funding will dry up because a lot of them are for 3-year funding, maybe 5-year funding. And as a residential program, of course, our expenses are a lot more than outpatient drug court, because we're housing, treating, over 100 and something people, 3 meals a day and so forth. However, we went to the Department of Corrections, the Tennessee Department of Corrections, and we pretty much told them that because some of our grant funding was gradually going away, because the program we've been established for over 20 years, just going from grant to grant. So we partner with the Tennessee Department of Corrections, and now they give us a per diem rate, because what we're doing is we're taking people from Department of Corrections and placing them in treatment. So we're saving them tax dollars. The per diem rate for people in Department of Corrections custody costs anywhere maybe about $74 a day. It just depends on what type of facility it is. Whereas our program costs about $48 a day to treat individuals 24 hours a day. And it's a long-term program. We have a 2-year program. So you're basically in the program for that period of time. So you can imagine the money it saves the taxpayers out of TDOC's budget, just by giving them the treatment that they need and taking them out of the facilities. And they need to free up those beds for more violent offenders. That's who those beds need to be utilized for, rather than individuals with a substance use disorder that can be treated in other means other than locking them up in jail or in prison.
I think there's a question there about whether or not there's any evidence on the value of telephone-based and virtual substance abuse treatment. I can't give you any information on whether or not there's any data out there. I'm sure you can contact the National Association for Drug Court Professionals, or NDCI, and they have a plethora of information. Now, whether this specific area has been studied yet, I'm not certain. I can tell you that it's just like any other telemedicine that's going on right now. It's simply where we are. And in the situation we currently find ourselves in, Dr. Hobson, I'm sure can agree, having access to someone who is struggling with a drug addiction via a virtual connection is better than having no connection at all. And having a consistent contact is treatment. It's treatment, and we have to continue to have treatment, or else it's almost as if we're withdrawing the medicine they need to get better. And so having that kind of contact is necessary. But I can't give you any data specifically on the success of it. It's just what we have now.
Panelists, thank you for answering those questions. We have another one. Can you walk us through the process of establishing a specialty court in our communities? If people are interested, who should we be reaching out to? What community partners should we be finding? Just walk us through the process, because I know it was a long one.
Okay, all right. We had an in-tune, woke city council member who was studying the issue and realized that it was something that the city of Birmingham might benefit from, and she took it upon herself to go in and on behalf of the city make the application for us to get the startup grant. That's how we started it. But at the same time, she also started finding champions within the city who would support the movement. Fortunately, we already had a successful program at the county. We already had one, as I said, at the juvenile court. And she simply thought it would be one that would benefit the largest city in the state of Alabama. She was right. She was right. Here we are now, 12 years later, and it's doing well. But somebody's got to identify an initial funding source and identify the staff. They've also got to convince somebody at the court system that it's possible to be done. That shouldn't be very hard. And once that's done, putting the structure in place should not be hard at all. Contacting the National Drug Court Association, they'll come in and train your staff and teach them all that they need to do. There's even a bench book for brand new judges who come into the drug court arena. This same model that we use in drug court is also used in other specialty courts, as Dr. Hobson said. Domestic violence uses the same, court uses the same model. It's simply the mechanism wherein we get deeper involved in people's lives and actually help them to change some of their behavior.
And you can, to follow up on that, you can also contact the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services in Tennessee, in Nashville. That is for the state. Actually, they oversee most of the drug courts across the state of Tennessee, and so they can tell you exactly where to start. And I agree with Judge Sparks. We started. When this drug court started, it started as an implementation grant. It was applying for a federal grant to start up a drug court program. Now that we have about 82 drug courts in the state of Tennessee, different specialty courts, not just recovery courts, we now have a department who oversees all of the drug courts across the state. So I would say start with, if you're in Tennessee, you can start with the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Otherwise, I agree with the judge that you might want to reach out or Google the National Association of Drug Court Professionals.
I agree with Dr. Hobson. We have also the Administrative Office of Courts now manages the drug courts in the state. And we have a drug court in just about every county in the state of Alabama. Wherever it is, somebody's going to have to become that champion. Somebody's going to have to be willing to go out and do the hard work that it takes in order to get it going and sustain it. There's one thing to get the court started, but sustaining it over the long haul is going to be very difficult. And so find someone who has a passion for helping people. I can tell you the data has been so significant from National Drug Court Institute that they've actually studied how long a judge has to interact with one of the defendants when they come to court. They've studied enough courts across the country over the last 25 years to know that I need to talk to each defendant a minimum of 3 minutes. A minimum of 3 minutes in order to be able to have a meaningful interaction with them. Now you put that into how normal courts work. Many times a docket goes so fast that a judge doesn't even really get a chance to say hello before the case is moved along, a review docket. But in these cases, I actually know the defendants' names. I know their families. I know whether they're working. I know their children. We have these meaningful conversations. It's that kind of interaction that allows them to know, one, they can trust me. They can trust me. And two, when they do well, we cheer them. When they don't do well, we give them something to incentivize them to do better. And because of that, we move along and the needle gets them to a place where sobriety becomes the norm as opposed to something you're reaching for. And many of them have not had that feeling. They haven't had, as I say to them, a success in a long time. And we help them get to a place where success feels good again.
Thank you, Judge Sparks. One more question before we move to the Q&A. What innovations would you both still like to see in your communities to address the problems putting people in court and in prison?
I didn't. So some of the innovations that are going to be required, we started a few years ago talking to our city council about what's the purpose of our court. Now, this might not seem like an innovation, but it is an innovative thought process. we have to stop looking at courts as money-making ventures, as places where, particularly municipal courts, places where people just come to pay traffic tickets, because almost all of these traffic courts or misdemeanor courts also have people with drug problems and alcohol problems and all those issues. And too often we simply pass people along when they've come into our presence. And I think those days are well gone. We become a governmental institution that has the power, the authority to have some direct intervention in how well people do. And I think we have to take advantage of those opportunities when they are presented to us. That's why we've innovated here at the court to make them know that it's our job to hold people accountable for what they do, but we do it compassionately. And that's by offering them services that they need, offering them structured programs that get them better. And so that innovation of thought is going to be the most important thing, not necessarily technology, but people just got to care about other people and help them get better.
And you continue to improve the program. You continue to, whatever is not working, then you go back to the drawing board and say, what can I do? Okay, so we need to add an employment piece on. So you hire or you write a grant for an employment specialist to come in to assist people with getting a job, because you're preparing them for life on the outside. Like for our drug court, we've got parenting classes. We continue to look at our recidivism, and we continue to look at and ask participants, you know, we have a survey when they graduate, hey, what would you like to see differently in the program? And as a staff, we look at that. As a team, we look at those surveys and we said, okay, so they are wanting more contact, more family services. So we implemented parenting classes for our participants, and they get a certificate at the end, vocational. So you're continuing to, you know, as things change in the world, then you have to change too and adapt and try to meet them where they are, because I think it's important that if you're treating them, you also have to make sure that you're helping them to establish housing, you know, I mentioned employment, whatever it takes for them to be successful and to reunify with their families, providing or referring them out to individual therapies. Because a lot of and I think Judge would agree, a lot of the participants that we see in our program, sometimes people use drugs because of prior trauma issues.
Absolutely.
So, trauma is a big one that, you know, a lot of people try to self-medicate, and, you know, we can't be everything to everybody. So what we do, if we're not experts in individual counseling for prior sexual abuse or whatever it may be, then we send them on the outside to get that therapy. And then, you know, we have a transportation assistant take them to an outside agency that provide that specialty and bring them back to the program. So you're constantly changing, and you have to.
Dr. Hobson is exactly right. All of our staff has been trained in trauma-informed therapies to understand the stress that people have to live under just in their lives. And Greg Blumenthal asked two great questions. One, how are these programs evaluated? One member of the team has to be someone who can do evaluation. So an evaluation person, either from a local college, or you hire someone in from your maybe it's the governmental staff who evaluates how you're spending the money in the program to make sure you're spending it wisely. That's a part of the team. Remember, it's a part of the process. The other question he asked, which is crucial, is do we work regularly with social workers in court? I have 8 social workers on staff here at Birmingham Municipal Court. That's how important social workers are to our program. 10 years ago, we had no social workers on staff. That's simply what criminal justice is today. Criminal justice has come to a place where there's a merging of social work and criminal justice in order to effect better outcomes. And I'm sure Dr. Hobson works with social workers in her program every day.
I just wanted to just say one thing too. The reason we're in this business, and part of the problem is, if you look at the statistics regarding incarceration, the United States, although only 5% of the world's population we consume 2/3 of the world's illegal drugs and incarcerate 25% of the world's prisoners. So you've got to do something when you've got these number of people, involved with substance abuse and being incarcerated for nonviolent offenses. And most of those offenses are drug-related offenses.
Another statistic that I think supports what she just said, and that's fabulous information, is why at municipal courts, why at city courts, would we put programs like this that require this level of intervention? Well, 60% of people who go to court come through a municipal court around the country. More people than will ever go through a circuit, even though that's where the programs are, but we'll see more people at our level of court than just about any other level. And we can't allow that number of citizens with issues to come through our doors and not do something to address those issues and try to help them.
Thank you, Greg, for your response. Do we have any other questions out there?
Yeah, I think there is a much discussion in the community that the program that Dr. Hobson works with is a model that others would strive to have. An inpatient treatment program like that. We'd love to have beds available for everybody who needs treatment. That's one of the problems we have here in the state of Alabama. We simply don't have enough treatment beds available to us for everybody who needs one. So I salute her for the model she's helped to establish all these many years and for the work she's done. But that is, if there has to be more innovation, it would be that we spend more money on treatment beds for people than we do on prison beds. And I guarantee you we would help a whole lot more folks and utilize those treatment options as incentives for people, as opposed to some of the criminality that we allow ourselves to push everyone into. We need more treatment beds. And with all of this money that's floating out there now, particularly in the state of Alabama, if we can get more treatment beds, we'll change some people's lives forever.
I agree with that. And I have to say, we have a governor who is pro-treatment in Tennessee, and even the prior governor, based on the success of some of the drug court program, including the residential drug court program. There's another drug court that's come up, residential facility for males only. It is a male only facility, and I believe they house about 70 participants. They're taking intakes from all over the state of Tennessee, as well as our program. We just don't take people from Davidson County. We take people from all over the state of Tennessee where there's a need. Also, the governor put money in his budget recently to establish a women's residential treatment facility. That's going to be a pretty large undertaking. It's in the works now. They've identified, of course, Judge Norman is assisting and is a consultant to help establish that drug court as well. So we're talking about 100 or so bed facilities for females, because we know that now with the onset of opiates, we're seeing more females in drug court, and Judge, you might see that as well, but the number of females have increased. So I think that's cutting edge, and I think that sometimes the politicians are listening. And, I applaud our government for stepping up to fund these programs. It will be a state-funded program. It will come out of state dollars. So some of our biggest problems in the past has been trying to raise money and continue grant funding. So now I'm seeing a change to now that you're getting the support from people with the purse strings that can assist you, because what I heard over the years and years, how come there's not more drug court beds available, so I think now people are listening.
Well, I can tell you right now that you're exactly right. All we're doing is redirecting money from prison to treatment beds. The money's already being spent. One thing I want you to consider and be mindful of is we keep saying drug court, Drug Court. We mean that, but we don't mean people addicted to drugs only. And the new terminology is substance use disorder, as has been identified in the latest Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, DSM-5. They've changed how they look at these addictions, and so now we can include those who are dealing with alcohol or drug abuse or some other malady in the treatment group that we might not have considered otherwise. Alcohol still causes problems. It's still the number one drug that anybody's going to use. It's still wrecking lives and tearing up households. So don't mistake the fact that we keep saying drug court. That's simply the name of the program. But we take people with substance use problems, and we can deal with the dependence and the treatment together now. That used to be separate, and now there's a little bit difference in how we look at it. So be mindful of that.
It's a very good point. And they're called them recovery courts too, not specific drug courts, but now the buzzword is the recovery courts, because we have so many specialties now. Like I say, veterans, mental health, juvenile drug courts. Family drug courts. We have a human trafficking court in Davidson County. So there's a number of various recovery courts across the country.
We have another question as we're wrapping up. We have about 5 minutes left. How has collaboration with community partners impacted your innovation in the courts?
Doc, you want to start out on that?
Or? You have to have the buy-in of the community. I'll start with that. It's important to have the community knowing what you're doing and to have their buy-in. So what we do is, for instance, with state trial court, we partner with the state trial courts. So whenever there is a grand jury that hears drug-related cases, then we host them for luncheon. We bring the quarterly grand jury out to see our facility, to talk about recovery courts, so they'll know what's going on in the community. They hear, when they're sitting on the grand jury, a lot about drug cases, and they only see, people in prison related to drugs. So it gives them an opportunity to see an alternative to that. We also bring, we had a lunch and learn several months ago where we bring our city council members out. We invite them to see the facility, to see what we're doing in the community. We have participants speak to them. We host many universities around the city. We bring them in. We maybe feed them some snacks, and we talk about what it is we're doing. And we also have the participants to talk to them. It's about educating the community on the issues of addiction. So we let our participants sometimes speak to college students and talk to them about how they got started in addiction and what to look for, where you can get help. Sometimes they talk about peer pressure, or they may talk about as a child how they were subject to using drugs and alcohol. And I can say, I don't think anybody starts off wanting to be a drug addict. Most people start off by saying, hey, I want to be a teacher when I grow up. I want to be, they have plans just like we all do. And students need to hear that. So we partnership with, like I say, many of our state agencies, many of our schools, just whoever in the community we think that may not know about what we're doing. We want to make sure that they understand that what the drug court or what specialty courts do is try to make a difference in the lives of people and their families. And assist them with becoming productive members of society. So we always try to stay focused on the goal. And in order to do that, you need to bring buy-in from various people in the community. including your churches. You know, we have church services there. We bring in ministers to every Sunday. There's a different church who volunteers to come in and bring services to our guys. And Judge, I'll divert to you.
Well, no, I think you'll hear some similarities in what Dr. Hobson is saying and what we do, because buy-in is garnered the same way no matter where you are. I'm listening to her and I'm chuckling because we do exactly the same thing. We don't have an inpatient program to bring people to, but every graduation I make sure, and I said you got to have a champion. I make sure I get some of our community notables in front of the graduation, the graduates, so that they can understand, the notables now can understand what we're doing in the drug court system. So they come in as a speaker or they come in to bring remarks. And it's amazing how the light comes on when they sit there and listen to the testimonials of the people. We have graduation twice a year. And when they come in and they hear how people's lives have been changed as a result of their involvement in the specialty court. I didn't mention to you that in addition to our other specialty courts, we also have a gun court that we use the specialty court model on for misdemeanor gun offenses. And we believe that that's been helpful in keeping down some of our problems we have here. We give them MRT and making sure that they understand. I call it stinking thinking training. We make sure that they think better when they get involved in those situations, that they're not so quick to respond with violence when they get in those situations. And by and large, they all come out with a different way of viewing problems. And it doesn't mean they always utilize it, but it's an opportunity for us to expose them to a new way of thinking. And moral recognition therapy is a great tool to use in helping them understand that. We have a program, we call it the HEAT program, that we send them through, and habitation empowerment, and we teach them to change their mentality as they go through treatment. The HEAT program is, I think, a game changer. It was written by some African-American therapists for African-Americans. It's specifically designed to speak to where they are. We'd love to get that information out to you from Daryl Turpin and Guy Wheeler wrote. They're two therapists that have been in the community for a long time helping folk. We think those kinds of things will continue to help do better in this arena. But you got to continue to sell people on the program for finances and just for community support. But one of our local leaders was so impressed when she came to our graduation that she went in her pocket and bought graduation gowns for all of our folk, for all of our graduates. She bought about 75 gowns so that every time we have a graduation, they can come in and all look the same when they graduate, because she was she simply felt compassion, because we know some people don't have dressy clothes to come when they graduate. And so she wanted them not to have those problems. That's the kind of impact putting them before community partners can have on them.
Thank you both so much for all of your insight. This conversation was really enlightening and informative for me, and I'm sure for all of our attendees. So thank you, everyone listening, for your questions and for being here. And make sure to check out our other panels coming up. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to play a little video to show you how to get to the next room.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. Good to meet you, Dr. Hobson.
We'll talk.
Talk offline. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, hi there. I'm Frankie Dakin, one of today's moderators. You might see me a few times. Oh, hi there. I'm Frankie Dakin, one of today's moderators. You might see me a few times throughout the day to offer a quick reminder about how to navigate through today's virtual summit. A session just ended, which means another session has begun or will begin soon. Check your virtual summit workbook for a copy of today's agenda. It includes direct links to every virtual room. Also, You can look in the chat box and find a copy of the agenda there as well. Go ahead and select your next session now. Go ahead, do it. You won't regret it. If you need technical assistance, leave a note in the chat box and an organizer will offer support if they can.